Today's lesson is 6.2, comparing and ordering integers. Our purpose is going to be to organize real-life events sequentially on a number line using positive and negative numbers. We're also going to be talking about inequalities when we're talking about the different numbers and as we're comparing them. The four symbols on this page are the four types of inequalities that we're going to be discussing in this chapter. I'm sure all of you are very familiar with the first two symbols on the left, the less than symbol and the greater than symbol. Typically, really, the only problems people have with these are which is which. Sometimes people get them mixed up. Some people remember it just by saying, well, the alligator is always going to eat the bigger number, and that is true. But when you're thinking about how to actually say it, when you're saying using the less than or greater than, we're always comparing the second number to the first. So we're starting with our initial number, and in our first example, it's 3. But then you need to think, is 3 less than 5 or greater than 5? And that's how you can determine which symbol to use. So the first one's 3 is less than 5. In the second example, we have greater than because 13 is greater than 7. So remember, you're always thinking of the first number, and then is it greater than or less than the second number? And then the direction, remember, you always want the opening to face the larger number. Okay, the second two symbols are symbols that people are not as familiar with. You know, you probably recognize the greater than and less than symbols on the top, but then we have a line underneath it. The reason that we're using the line underneath it is we're combining actually two math symbols here. We're combining the less than and greater than symbols with an equal to. So this top symbol actually means less than or equal to. So as I show you the first number example, 6 is less than or equal to 8. Now it's pretty obvious to all of us that 6 is less than 8. But think about if I replace that 6 with a variable and I wrote A is less than or equal to 8. Now that does mean that A could be any number leading up to 7, but it would also include the number 8 since it could also be equal to. The same is true of the second number, or the second symbol here. We're just taking the greater than symbol and combining it with an equal sign. And the same thing is true. It means that that first number, the 7, is greater than or equal to 3. If I replace that 7, say, with an H, and said H is greater than or equal to 3, that means my variable could be 3, but it could also be any number bigger than 3. So when you see the less than or equal to signs, or the greater than or equal to signs, it does kind of look silly when it's just being comparing two numbers. But when you put a variable in place of a number, then it makes more sense as to why these symbols could be useful. Okay, we're now going to talk specifically about the number line. Now, all of you know on a horizontal number line, numbers to the left are less than numbers to the right. As I move to the right on my number line, the numbers get bigger. So when I start at my -6, if I move to the right, everything to the right of -6 is bigger. So thinking at -5, even though 5 is a smaller number than 6, when I'm talking about negatives, it's actually a bigger number. You have more if you have -5 in the whole than if you have -6 in the whole. Think about it as getting further away from the positive numbers, so the numbers are getting smaller. And this is a little awkward at first, but we'll be practicing it quite a bit in the coming days. So 2 is to the right of -6, so 2 is actually greater than -6. Even though some people might think, well, -6 is a bigger number than 2. When it's a negative, it really is not. It's a smaller number. Now, when you're on a vertical number line, as you move up, the numbers get bigger. So same thing is true. When I have -5 and -3 are the two being compared, -3 is actually bigger than -5 because it is higher on the number line and it's closer to 0. In negative numbers, as you get closer to 0, the values get bigger.